Today we're speaking with Baer, customer experience expert and best-selling author of several books including Hug Your Haters and Utility, Why Smart Marketing is About Help, Not Hype. Jay, thanks for speaking with us today.
Delighted to be here. Thanks for taking the time.
Great. First off, I wanted to ask you, in your book, Hug Your Haters, you mentioned that about 80% of companies say they deliver outstanding customer service, but only 8% of their customers agree. What are a few things...
Yeah.
What are a few of your favorite tips for closing the gap with customer service?
Well, that research comes from Baer, and it's interesting. So many businesses feel like they're already good at it, and I think because no business intentionally delivers poor customer service, they just figure, we're pretty good at it, and they dig a little deeper and realize that they're not. But in the research I did for Hug Your Haters, I found really the key solution to improving customer service isn't really that difficult. It's answering your customers, which sounds incredibly self-evident, but we discovered in the research that 1/3 of all customer complaints are never answered.
That much?
Never answered at all. And certainly that tends to cause those customers to leave because, of course, no response is a response, isn't it? No response is a response that says we care so little about your dissatisfaction that we refuse to even acknowledge it. As my friend Shep Hyken has said, a customer that you ignore is a customer you should be prepared to lose. And so what I talk about in the book is that, look, you need to work a little harder and answer customers every time in every channel, and not just say, well, we answer the phone and we answer emails, but what about customers who are trying to reach you on Twitter? What about customers who are trying to reach you on Facebook? What about customers who are leaving a review on Yelp or TripAdvisor, or customers that are talking about you on a discussion board or forum? All of those customers want a response as well. It's just that most businesses aren't really set up to do that very well. They're set up to answer the phone and they're set up to answer emails, and that's about it.
Do you think there's any major roadblocks that they can address?
Well, the big roadblocks in terms of answering in all of those different venues is that most companies don't have an existing customer service team that has either the software or the training to interact with customers in a place like Twitter or Facebook. The second obstacle is that in some companies it's two different teams. So you've got sort of a Facebook, Twitter, the Yelp team, and then a separate kind of phone and email team. And while that's better than having nobody handling it, there are often inconsistencies there. For example, I'm sure listeners are familiar with the circumstance where some customers will complain on a place like Twitter because they feel like they will get better results because it's a public forum. And they do that because it's actually true in a lot of cases, right? You will get a better outcome or a speedier reply on Twitter than you will on phone or email. And so what's happening is companies are training their customers to complain in public because they give them a better outcome in public. And that's probably not a good long-term solution.
No, it doesn't sound like it. In order to hug your haters, you've suggested it's necessary to respond to every complaint in every channel all the time. While this can be time-consuming, it makes sense to try and keep the customers you have rather than always chasing new ones. Can you tell us some of the less obvious benefits?
Well, that benefit is, I don't want to run past that too quickly because there's some research that Adobe did after the book was published that I think puts a fine point on this. They found that in business-to-business companies, which of course is a slightly different dynamic, but I find it interesting. In business-to-business, on average, 80% of total revenue comes from existing customers. Right? That stands to reason. Right? That makes sense. Most of your current customers continue to pay you month to month, year to year, quarter to quarter. 80% of your revenue comes from the customers you've already earned, but the average B2B organization spends 2% of revenue on customer service. So you are investing 2% to maintain 80% of your revenue. That's a fairly dangerous game to play and a fairly minimally funded level of customer service. And so I want to make sure that listeners and readers understand just how important that dynamic is. This keeping the customer you've already earned will absolutely grow your business. Research now that's been proven in multiple times by multiple different academic organizations says that if you can increase your customer retention by just 5% or so, you can increase your profits geometrically by 25% or more because of the compounding effect of customer retention. So we want to make sure that we're not so quick to write off a customer. I hear this all the time. Well, they're a bad customer. We should just let them go because we'll be able to replace them easily. Well, maybe not. So we just need to work a little harder on the customer service and the customer retention side of things.
And considering how much it costs to actually go and acquire a customer, something like 6 times that of retention, it's definitely better for the company overall.
Yeah, but what's amazing to me and why I wrote the book is that we all know that to be true, right? Like if I say to you or to anybody else who's been in business longer than half an hour, and I say it makes sense to keep the customers you've already earned, and it costs more to replace customers, nobody's going to argue that. Nobody's going to say, no, that's crazy. That's not true. Everybody knows it to be true. We all know it to be true, but yet almost no companies are actually set up that way. That's the great mystery of modern customer service, right? We all know that we should do more customer service and do it better, but yet we still don't.
And I think I've heard some of these statistics before, like even years ago, but yet here we are still in the same boat today.
Yeah, and customer service has gotten more difficult, which is why the book is timely, right? We weren't that good at customer service when all we had to worry about was face-to-face and letters and phone. Now we got to worry about face-to-face, letters, phone, email, social media, review sites, discussion boards and forums, and all the rest. And so if we weren't good at it when we only had 3 channels, we're definitely not good at it when we have 12 channels.
Yeah, so true. You've mentioned a study by Walker which states by the year 2020, customer experience will overtake price and product as the key brand differentiator. Are there any specific strategies for small businesses to utilize that can help develop this opportunity?
Absolutely. In fact, my new book, which I'm working on right now, is called Talk Triggers, the secret recipe for doing things different and getting customers for free. And it's about that same idea, this notion that customer experience can actually create new customers. And what most people try to do, and what most of the literature will tell you, and what most consultants and speakers and authors will say, is that the secret is to deliver a good customer experience, meaning that you are adept at executing whatever it is that your business offers. So it's a high quality product; it doesn't break. Or in a service business, the people who deliver the services are polite or on time. And all of that's fine. You should definitely do that, right? You shouldn't run a bad business. But those kind of attributes, essentially being a quote-unquote good business and delivering a quote-unquote good customer experience, is not enough to actually trigger the word-of-mouth viral effect to get new customers. Because nobody ever says, hey, let me tell you about this perfectly adequate experience I had yesterday. Nobody ever says that because it's not a good story. So instead, what you want to do is not only deliver a good experience, right, and have a good operation, but do something different. Do something unusual, yet relevant, that customers will remember and tell stories about. I'll give you a small business example. So there's a restaurant in Sacramento called Skip's Kitchen. And Skip's Kitchen specializes in hamburgers. They make a lot of other things well. They're known to have sort of the best burgers in the Sacramento area. That's their good customer experience, right? They run a good restaurant. It's a clean restaurant. It's speedy, and the food is good. But that's not enough to actually create word of mouth. What they do is that when you go to the counter to order your food, the cashier pulls out a deck of cards, fans the deck of cards out in front of you with the numbers down. You pick a card at random. If you get a joker, your meal is free. And if you don't get a joker, whatever card you get, the 4 of spades, you go and you put on a little hanger on your table. And so when they bring your food to your table, your order number is 4 of spades, and that's how they know where to find you. That's their hook. That's what creates word of mouth and gets them new customers as a result. So you can't have one without the other. You can't have a word of mouth trigger and run a terrible business, but you also can't just run a good business and expect people to talk about you.
No, too true. It makes sense. Of the 95% of customers that are dissatisfied and never mention anything to the business, what steps can you take to identify that group to try and retain them? And what steps should you take to try and win them back if you realize they've left?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I've never been asked that question that way before. Let me set up the numbers a little bit more for listeners and readers. So the stat is that out of every 100 dissatisfied customers, only 5 will complain in a way that you are likely to find it.
Yes.
So those are the people who call you, email you, etc. 5 out of 100. So 95 unhappy customers, 95% of unhappy customers just stop giving you money, right? They don't come to the restaurant anymore. They cancel their software subscription or whatever.
They just
you hit on
disappear.
a very important point, which is how do you know those 95 without them complaining overtly? It really depends on your business. So if you run a software company, you can easily run a report of people who do not renew, or you can look at usage reports and say who's not logging in anymore, and you should proactively communicate to those people and say, hey, I see you haven't logged in for a while. How can I help you? What has gone amiss here? In an email circumstance, maybe you have a restaurant with an email newsletter. You see that people, a certain segment of your email list stops opening the email, stops clicking on the email. You might be able to message them and say, understand you're not engaging with us like you used to. Is there something else that we can offer you? What can we do to help? But it's a challenge. Those people are largely invisible, and it is difficult to win them back until you can see them. And so the lesson I draw in the book is not necessarily how do you play detective to find the 95%, although that would be amazing. It's making sure that you spend a lot of time listening to the 5% who actually do complain, because they are representing the beliefs and the feelings of a much larger group of people, and we don't commonly accept that wisdom in business. I hear this all the time. A customer complains or leaves a negative review or what have you, and the business says, well, that's an isolated occurrence. That's only happened this one time. That customer is unusual or is an edge case in some way. And mathematically, it's just not true. It doesn't hold water. On average, every unhappy customer represents 19 others who have the exact same problem, but didn't say anything about it.
And in your opinion, how important are online reviews and customer opinion when it comes to the customer experience, and how can it impact attracting new business?
It depends on the category, of course. Online ratings and reviews are more impactful in the categories where customers tend to look at those all the time. But I will tell you that in every industry, fundamentally, almost every industry, ratings and reviews are important decision makers, because there's now ratings and review sites in all kinds of niche categories. The one I talk about in the book is a site called realself.com, which is ratings and reviews for plastic surgeons. I never thought, it's like Yelp for plastic surgery, which is remarkable to even consider. So all these different industries have ratings and review sites, and I don't talk about this in the book, but I'll touch on it here. There's a thing called Hick's Law, and Hick's Law is a psychological phenomenon that says that when consumers are presented with more and more choices, their ability to make a choice goes down. It takes them longer to decide. So there's a book called The Paradox of Choice, which is based on Hick's Law. It's that same idea. And it's sort of like when you go into a grocery store and you go to the cereal aisle and you just see people standing there slack-jawed trying to make a decision, by sifting through 50 or 60 different types of cereal, right? It's almost paralyzing. Well, the same thing is true online. You do a Google search or you go to some sort of website, you have all these different options, whether it's software companies or restaurants or plumbers or whatever. And so what consumers do, because of Hick's Law, is they shortcut the research process. And they just look at the star rating. Like, well, okay, I've been presented a list of 11 different plumbers. This plumber has a 4.4 average rating. This guy has a 3.9. I'm going to click on the 4.4, and I'm not going to do any other research. And if I do, maybe I'll look at a couple ratings and reviews, and that'll be enough. We're shortcutting decision making because we have to, and that's why ratings and reviews are so incredibly important. More than 80% of Americans say that they trust ratings and reviews in some circumstances. And so it's important and going to get more important. Not only do you need to respond to all of your reviews, but it's important that businesses have some sort of strategy for making sure that their customers provide them reviews.
Very interesting. One more quick question. When's your new book coming out, and what's the name of it?
The new book is called Talk Triggers, and it will probably be out either September or October of 2018. We'll see exactly when we get it on the shelves, but next fall.
Okay, great. Jay, thanks so much for your time today. We've been speaking
My pleasure. It was a blast. We'll do it again sometime.
Okay. We've been speaking with customer experience expert Jay Baer for NiceJob.